So I thought I'd start us off with something nice and light and fun, and that's ranking unknowable words. Now, I believe all of these words originally came from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, which you may remember. I think I came across it from StumbleUpon. Apparently, the author, John Koenig, has recently published a book of some of the obscure definitions, so congratulations, John, well done to you. I'm sure he'll love that. Anyway, I say this, I think these words originally came from here, but I actually saw them on a post on Instagram, posted by Alex Rutting, writing without any vowels, and that post in itself is a screenshot from a Tumblr user called Tai Korkshak. So thanks. Now, Chomsky says, if you can't say something, you don't know it. So this is a chance for us all to maybe learn a few new words and how to say some new things, how to say some new ideas, say some new emotions that we didn't even know existed. Okay, so I've made one of these tier listings, and we'll have a go at ranking them. Right, so we're starting off here, this word, which is chrysalism. Now, chrysalism is the amniotic tranquility of being indoors during a thunderstorm. Like amniotic, like the feeling of being indoors during a thunderstorm, one of my favourite things. Chrysalism. It sounds good, it's got a good mouthfeel, it's like a nice thing, and actually starts off, we're going to have this as a proper S-tier word, so well done, chrysalism, starting off very strong. Now, the next word that we've got is vermördelen. Now, vermördelen, what does this even mean? Let me take a look on this handy list I have here. Now, vermördelen is the frustration of photographing something when thousands of identical photographs already exist. I have to say, I can't say that I've ever experienced this. Perhaps someone who's more into photography would feel this more. So, in terms of expressing an unknowable emotion, not one I personally can relate to, sound of the word vermördelen. I don't know. Gonna give it a probably C tier. C tier word vermördelen. Like, it's quite a nice sound, vermördelen, but it's an unrelatable thing, and I can't tell the linguistic origin. I'm not a linguist. Maybe it's like sort of Scandinavian. The O on it feels like there should be an R after VE. Feels like it should be vermördelen, but maybe that's because I'm familiar with German and not Swedish. Perhaps this is wrong with me. If you know the origin, please let me know. Anyway, moving on, we have this word, anekdochi. Anekdochi. Now, this is a conversation in which everyone is talking, but no one is listening. Anekdochi. Very strong. I think we've all been there. And maybe you can notice it happening. Maybe you're also not listening because you're thinking about how nobody's listening, and then it becomes weirdly cyclical and hard to manage. Anekdochi. I'm going to make this A tier word. It could have gone up to S because I do like the sentiment and I do like the sound of it, but I think the spelling and the pronunciation as a result of that spelling is ambiguous. So this is where we're going to leave it for right now. Okay, what else have we got? This word, kuebiko. Kuebiko? A state of exhaustion inspired by acts of senseless violence. Well, I mean, read the news, and I'm sure you'll know. I'm sure you'll know what this means. It's a good emotion to put down in word form. But I'm gonna give it a B because I feel like the sound of the word, the phonetics of it don't quite match up with the gravitas of the situation. Kuebiko. It's a little bit too whimsical for the idea that it's trying to express. Anyway, moving on. Lacacism. Lacacism is the desire to be struck by a disaster. For example, to survive an aeroplane crash or to lose everything in a fire. Lacacism. I quite like the sound of it auditorily, but I can't say that I have ever felt the desire to be struck by a natural disaster. Been in one once, going on in Germany, floods caught in a flood. I was okay, I was on the motorway, but there was a natural disaster in the province, in the state in which I was. Not the point. Locationism. No, I think another one where the spelling leads to ambiguousness of the pronunciation, and not an idea that I relate to particularly well. It's going to be another C tier. It's going to be another C tier. Okay, moving on. Our next word is exulansis. Exulansis. The tendency to give up trying to talk about an experience because people are unable to relate to it. That's a D tier word there. Exulansis. It's a silly idea. You should give up on this. Maybe you do experience exulansis, in which case I'm sorry. But the point of language, the point of words like these, is to help people to communicate. We want to be able to understand people, and that can be challenging. It's actually an insane thing that people are able to do, which is talk to one another. Like, we all have these different worlds inside our head, and somehow we can put them out there and have other people have some insight into what is going on in there. So don't give up. And also, exulansis sounds like a positive emotion. It sounds joyous. It sounds expressive. It sounds like exaltation, you know. Whereas this is a defeat, and so gets a D tier. This next one. Adronitis, which is a frustration with how long it takes to get to know someone. Great word, great sentiment. That's going to be an S tier word, I think. S tier. It sounds good. It captures a real feeling. I think, you know, you meet a new person. Maybe you'd like to be friends with them. Maybe you wouldn't. You have to invest a lot of time in people to know whether or not that you want them to be a part of your life, and vice versa. And if you do, then you can't jump in. You know, people need time. It's natural and normal and healthy, but it can be frustrating, I think. So this next one is Rückenrunde, and that's the feeling of returning home after an immersive trip, only to find it fading rapidly from your awareness. Now, I can't remember what an immersive trip feels like. However, I am fortunate in that I'm a dual national and between two countries from time to time, and returning to the UK, I certainly feel Switzerland fading, if not the other way around. It's a little bit, now often I quite like German compound words. This one is tricky to say. Rückenrunde. It's a lot of r, which you have in the German. I don't feel particularly strongly about the sentiment. I'm going to put that as a C tier word, which is rapidly filling up. Now, this one, nodus tollens. On the face of it, sounds quite good, nodus tollens. But what it means is the realization that the plot of your life doesn't make sense to you anymore, and because of that, it's going to be D tier. And it's going to be D tier for two reasons. The first, although it is quite aesthetically pleasing, the sound nodus tollens, it is two words, not one word. So it's not an unknowable word. It's an unknowable phrase. And in inventing this phrase, because it is invented, we've simultaneously invented a lacuna, and that seems a little bit lazy, if you ask me. If you're going to invent a word, why invent a phrase? Besides which, the realization that the plot of your life doesn't make sense anymore. Lives don't have plots. There is not a start point and an end point throughout which a great transformation has happened. Lives are amalgamations of lots of random happenstances that we then try to retroactively make sense of. There is no such thing as a plot to life. Anyone who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something. Ellipsism. A sadness that you'll never be able to know how history will turn out. I'm going to give that ellipsism. A sadness that you'll never know how history turned out. I'm going to give that an A rating, ellipsism. I think it is relatable. I think it's... No, you know what, a B. Here's why I've downgraded from an A to a B. Yes, I do think it's relatable to feel sad that you'll never know how history will turn out. But I also think that sometimes that's for the best, and that maybe we wouldn't be too happy knowing how a lot of history is going to turn out. Although I do like the sound of it. Ellipsism. Oh, it's a borderline one between A and B, but B is where it shall stay. Sonder. Sonder's got to be an A tier word. Sonder is, I think, the word that introduced a lot of people to the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. I think it is, I think that I remember being in 11th grade English, and we had to do some exercise with around words, and a classmate of mine asked if we could use made-up words. And my teacher, baffled, asked him what he meant by this, and he mentioned the word sonder, which I'd already heard of, I think, again through this on Stumble Upon. Sonder is the realization that each passerby has a life as vivid and complex as your own. And I've left it in A rather than S, because it is the flagship unknowable word, I think. And maybe it's a little bit overused. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm making that up. But it's certainly the one I've encountered the most. And I don't know if it being a meme almost discounts it from being S. But I think that it's A rather than S because it is quite well known amongst all of these words, and therefore is not as unknowable as the rest of them. That's what I'm going to go with anyway. Onism. Onism, the frustration of being stuck in just one body that inhabits only one place in time. That's quite strange. I think a lot of people might claim to have felt this upon reading the word, but I don't know that anyone actually has. Onism. Frustration of being stuck in your body and inhabiting only one time. Only one place in time. That is frustrating, so we'll give it an A. Onism. Excellent. Right. Liberosis. The desire to care less about things. Liberosis. I like this because it sounds like liberosis. It sounds like pathologizing a desire for freedom. And sometimes that desire is not necessarily a good thing. You know, not caring about things, not having earthly desires is a path to contentment. However, caring about things can be good too. It can be wonderful, and indeed is a necessary condition of being human. It's what we care about that becomes tricky. Liberosis. It's an S-tier word. Altschmerz. Weariness with the same old issues you've always had. The same boring flaws and anxieties that have been gnawing on you for years. Altschmerz. Now, literally in German, this translates as like old ache, old weariness, old pain. Perhaps not weariness. Weariness is mad. That's in the definition. Old pain. It's an S-tier word. German compound word, very effective on this. It's not really like the which is hard to say. Maybe it's not hard to say if you're a native German speaker, but Altschmerz is much crisper. Altschmerz. It's a good word. It's got a good mouthfeel, and it expresses a good sentiment. Okay. Ociolism, an awareness of the smallness of your perspective. That's going to be an A tier. Ociolism, an awareness of the smallness of your perspective. I think it can be very useful in many instances, and perhaps far too rare. Ociolism, and it's got a nice ring to it as well. Ociolism. Excellent. I don't feel the need to justify it more than that. Why is it not an S? I don't know. It just felt like an A. Opia, the ambiguous intensity of looking someone in the eye, which can simultaneously feel invasive and vulnerable. Now, is it intense? Certainly seemed to be in the Dresden Files, the series of books about wizard detective Harry Dresden, who, when wizards look people in the eye, you can actually feel like soul moving to and fro. Looking someone in the eye can be intense. Opia, but I don't think opia is a good word for it. I'm going to give it a B tier. Opia. Yes, simultaneously feel invasive and vulnerable. Well, that's not true every time you look someone in the eye. I look everyone I speak to in the eye. It doesn't always feel invasive but it can be if you maintain it for a long time. But that is not a necessary condition of looking someone in the eye, and opia doesn't sound like a right word. Opia. Anyway. Monocopsis. The subtle but persistent feeling of being out of place. Monocopsis. It's got a good feel to it. Almost reminds me of a monarch butterfly, which what's the word? Migrates. It does that. Yes, monocopsis. Being out of place. I think people can relate to that. Especially where we're alienated. Started way back in 1786. The reign of the bourgeoisie. Marx wrote about it, and it's really only been accelerated in contemporary times. We are alienated from the world by design. That was a needless leftist tangent, but that's me. Monocopsis, A tier, brilliant word, great word. Énouement, going for a French philosophical word rather than a German one here. The bittersweetness of having arrived in the future, seeing how things turn out, but not being able to tell your past sense. So perhaps the inverse of ellipsism. How things not being able to tell your past self. Well, then we're in paradox territory, aren't we? Because if you were to tell yourself, they might not turn out that way. Either that, or we are down to living in a deterministic universe, both of which I reject. As a result, it's a C tier word, énouement. Sounds quite nice, énouement, which is why it's avoided being D tier, but it's a damned if you do, a damned if you don't sentence. Velocore. No question about this. This is an S tier word. Velocore. Velocore is the strange wistfulness of used bookshops. It reminds me of a bookshop, a second-hand bookshop near the Grass Market in Edinburgh, and I always felt like it was a place for an adventure to appear. They had a section in the back of the shop for occult books. They had all these shelves of occult books about from strange times in Scottish history. This old city of Edinburgh where it rains all the time. The buildings are brick and stone. It looks very gothic. And Velocore is the perfect word to surmise that situation. The emotion of Velocore is similarly wistful to the emotion as in represented by the experience of petrichor, which is what it sounds a little bit like. Petrichor, of course, being the smell of grass after rain, particularly in the springtime. I think it's equal and opposite energies. Wistful places that can be hard to qualify, or quantify, even more so. Rubetosis, the unsettling awareness of your own heartbeat. Now, rubetosis aesthetically, very unpleasant word, but that's kind of okay because it represents an unpleasant thing. Rubetosis, the unsettling awareness of your own heartbeat. I've never found that particularly unsettling, to be honest with you. And so it's going to be a C tier word, rubetosis. Say it would have been D tier because it does sound aesthetically displeasing, but it is designed to be, so that's okay. Canopsia. The eerie, forlorn atmosphere of a place that is usually bustling with people but is now abandoned and quiet. Well, gosh, wasn't that a word that we needed 2 years ago? Nearly. It's something we can all relate to. I'm sure we've all seen the pictures of Venice or London or whatever the city nearest to you is, where they have, where they had this canopsia. I'm going to rank that B tier. It's a vital word, a vital emotion. Does the sound canopsia represent that? I don't think so. Not great, but it will do. This is a fun word. Jouska. Jouska. A hypothetical conversation that you can possibly play out in your head. Do this a lot. Jouska. Lots of conversations. What might they go like? How might I respond if this happened? A tier word. Sounds nice. Jouska. Like jousting, almost. You're jousting in your... That's not something people do. It'd be more like fencing. But jousting, still a fun word. And the last word another German compound word, and I don't know if you can see it in this little square because it is very small, but I'll have it popped up on the screen, and that's Mauerbauer Traurigkeit, the inexplicable urge to push people away, even close friends who you really like. Now, it is a good, long German compound word. Can't say I've ever experienced it. And as a result, I'm going to put it in C tier. Do people really feel that? Maybe some people do. I assume so, or else it might have been commented upon more. And that's it. That's all the words that I prepared from this Instagram post. So thank you, Alex Writing, for providing them and the inspiration for this video. 23 words. Maybe some of them you've heard before. Maybe some of them you haven't. If there are other words that speak to you, that maybe appeared in the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, feel free to comment them below. Language profoundly shapes how we see the world, and it's complex and malleable and can adapt, especially English. English can change a lot. And as new ideas enter our consciousness, or as we need more time to refine them, I'm sure new words will emerge to make these ideas transmissible.